All right. Well, today is chapter 14. We're getting there. This is it. You're about to certainly close to the end right here. So chapter 14, right? Coercion and resiliency. So you need to know, like, our valley is an incredibly a terrible place for human trafficking. The highways, the port, all these things make us too accessible to human traffickers. The poverty levels, the way people feel about themselves make too many, it's too easy for people to become victimized by the traffickers, but it's also, like I said, the thoroughfares, the highways, your I-5 going up and down the state, I-80 going across the country. We are unfortunately at a hub for human traffickers, and it's a terrible thing. And, but coercion, and that is not just at that top level of horror. It is your so-called boyfriend convincing you to have sex when you're not really ready. It's your girlfriend convincing you to have sex when you're not really ready. It's just any type of behavior that pushes you to do something you're not exactly comfortable doing. And there's a lot of other things in this chapter, but I'm going to focus on a couple of little things. And so one of the things I wanted to focus on is called grooming, and then the other is resiliency. Okay, so I am going to, same thing. So you go here into the modules, you go all the way down here, and here's a chapter 14 PowerPoint. If you want a little long with it. And so coercion and resiliency, that's what I said, right? And so coercion is done, we grooming, right? So we groom people to be victims. Like perpetrators groom people to be victims. And it can happen at any young age, right? Children, like unfortunately, young adults, teenagers. It happens online and in person, right? So there's a lot of grooming done online, and then somebody gets you to come and finally meet them, and then it becomes a real problem. So the intent of grooming is to either get some sexual materials, pictures, right, or acts, and to do that, you have to gain somebody's trust, right, and get them to comply with your requests for pictures or photos or videos, etc. You also need to be able to make sure they're not going to tell anybody, right, because you don't want to get caught if you're a perpetrator, right? And so you need to avoid discovery. So these are the goals of grooming. So how do I do this, right? So I give special attention to the child that is not getting it elsewhere, right? The child who's ostracized by their peers, the child who is alone. I make them feel special. I make them feel older. I gain it. And I work with them. And then I also ingratiate myself to their parents or caregivers so that they trust me, right? Because that's what happens. And most molesters, the parents are like, oh, they were family members. We trusted them. That kind of thing. They were family friends forever. We trusted them. Then, the older they are, you start isolating them from their friends and peers and family. And so you start keeping them away from the people that would care about them and support them. And then coercing them, like you use threats by making them think they are the ones that did this. Right? There's very strong mind games going on here, right? To make people um, shape people's behavior, make people behave this way. I say, like I said, manipulating them to blame themselves, like this is your fault. This is happening to you, and you can't tell anybody. And then, of course, it's an evolving process, right? So somebody puts their hand on your shoulder, and then over time, the next thing you know, they're touching you in places they shouldn't be touching you. Now, this is what as an outsider, these are the things I should see, right? Like, so when a child um, has an attachment to an older person, that's unusual, right? Like teenage boys do not make friends with 6-year-old girls. Teenage girls do not make friends. Adult women do not make friends with 13-year-old boys. Adult boys do not make, adult men do not make friends with 15-year-old girls. Like these kind of things, an unusual relationship. All of a sudden you have the person has like things they shouldn't have, like expensive shoes or gifts, little jewelry, whatever. They are secretive. They don't want you looking at their phone. They don't want you seeing what they do on their social media accounts. They have a social media account under a different name. All kinds of things. They are time absent, and you are unaware of where they are. Things are not working. They're being dishonest about who they've been with. They may start using substances, right? They may start using alcohol and drugs to numb the feelings they have, or include shame, guilt, fear, right? All those things. And they may get a fake ID, start doing things, right? Or a stranger, somebody starts picking them up at school, so meeting them at school. So this is what an outsider like you would see, you would hope to see as a parent, as a friend, a relative, whatever it is. And then you would pick up on this and try to find out what's going on. So, how do you prevent grooming? Well, for one thing, you have to know what safe behaviors are. Knowing, like teaching him what those grooming techniques are. So, like if somebody starts doing something to me, I know that's not the right thing, right? Um, Talk how to online, how to make sure your privacy, how you make sure you're not getting messages from total strangers and you're not responding to them, you're rejecting requests from people you may not know, and all those things, right? Uh, so, and then who do I tell? Is there somebody I can tell when I think something weird is happening? Right? And then being able to have strong boundaries and saying no to whoever that is. Right? And techniques. So this is all about grooming. Now, unfortunately, things happen to people, and it's not just sexual situations, right? We all have bad things happen to us. And one of our biggest assets is resiliency. How do I rebound after a tragedy? How do I rebound after some event that, was an unfortunate event? So resiliency has to do with all phases of life, right? And definitely what it means is Right? So it's being able to cope with tough events. It's not putting up with a situation, but reaching out for help and support, like when something's going on. It protects us from mental health issues, right? Like if I can rebound well, if I can come back strong, I'm less likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, and like post-traumatic stress syndrome from a negative event. Excuse me. All right, so we build resilience. How do we build resilience? Well, for one, we have good, strong, healthy relationships, which means we have secure attachments, right? Goes back to the last chapter with the secure attachments, right? We have meaning in our lives. Like we get up after something happens, we get up and we have a purpose in our life to do every day to move forward, right? We rely on how we coped with things in the past. As a therapist, one of the first things we always ask people is they come in and people come and say, "Well, I'm stuck in this situation." And it's like, "Well, have you had this before?" And then yeah, and they're like, "Yeah," and then it's like, "Well, what did you do then that worked for you?" Let's start there. Let's build on what you already do that works for you, and then we'll build on that. And so that's what I mean. What has helped you do tough times before? Or who has helped you do both? Right. Not dwelling in the past. You can't change the past, right? But being able to make myself look towards the future and a better future, right? To be able to adapt to the new situation, to the new me, because things definitely change people. You take care of yourself, make sure you're eating, sleeping, exercising, doing the healthy things to take care of yourself. And don't try to ignore it. Don't try to think you can like you have to deal with things when a tragic event type happens. You have to deal with it and you have to be proactive in your recovery. And we recover from things, and that's why resiliency is a big part of that recovery. Okay. Once again, the only really things, these are the articles that I use. If you want to look further into some of this stuff, feel free. Here's actually U.S. Department of State story about it, because things happen to people when they're traveling in the country, right? And then this is actually children and grooming. Okay. So these are some of the articles that I took most of this stuff from, right? And so once again, we have a discussion topic, right? And what we're going to do is I am going to go back to the modules here and where did I put it? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. I thought I had it. I will add it to the modules by the time you see this, but right now it's in here. This is the Connor Davidson resiliency scale. I can't help that. So this is a measure of your own personal resiliency, and it's very short. It's 5 questions, right? And same thing. It's on a scale. 1 is not true. 0 is not true at all, and 4 is true nearly all of the time. Right. So it just goes 1 through 4, and there's only 5 questions. And this measures your resiliency. And so you don't need to share your score. Again, you don't need to share your scores. You don't need to look at other people's comments and comment on their stuff. This is just about you writing about and thinking about your own resiliency, where you're at, and what do you think you can do to build that up? Because everybody in life has negative events. They don't need to be horrific negative events like sexual, trafficking and all that stuff, right? But um, we all have negative events in our life, whatever that is, and the resiliency is how we come back from that. Whether it's the death of a loved one, the loss of jobs, all kinds of setbacks. And how we bounce back from those is important. So this is a good time, like for you to see where you are in your own resiliency and how you can make it better, right? And so that's what your discussion comment is going to be about. Like, where do you think you stand, and what do you think you could do to be better? Okay, the same thing, like 50 to 100 words. All right. And I'm available if you have any questions. Okay. So that back here. And like I said, that'll be in the module 1 before we're done. Matter of fact, maybe I can. Oh no, that's not what it. So there you go. So there it is already. Okay. All right. Good luck. And as always, I'm available if you need it. One more chapter.